What's up guys, Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp layout tutorial for you. So in this video we're going to take our apartment model and we're going to add some interior elevations. So before we get started, I do want to take a second and thank my supporters on Patreon. Patreon, as you know, is the website where you can support creators that you like on YouTube. So if you like what I'm doing in this channel, you want to support me, please check out that link in the notes down below. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so for any of you that are new to this series, this is basically my start to finish series on taking a model and creating architectural plans from it. So what we're going to do, so we've already created some working views for our floor plans and for our different walls and our wall shading and that sort of thing. Now what we want to do is we want to create a couple views that show some interior elevations of a couple of our spaces. And so remember, interior elevations is basically a view where you're like standing inside the space looking at these objects, and so you can see them straight up and down. And there's a couple different ways that you can do this. So the first way that you can do this is you could use a section plane in order to create your elevation view. So let's say, for example, that I wanted to create a view that showed my refrigerator, my stove, basically my kitchen looking this direction. One way to do this is you could create a section cut. And so what you could do is you could come in here with the section plane tool and you could create a cut through your model that's pointing off in this direction. And so you can see I'm doing this in SketchUp 2018, and so one of the things you'll notice is that there's a number associated with this. And so if I go down to my outliner, you can see this is that section 2.2. And what you can do, and I turned off, in 2018 there's an option that allows you to set the name of your section planes and also the symbol when you create it. I turn that off because a lot of the time I just want to create a quick section plane and I don't really want to name this. In this case, what we could do is we can right click on it in the outliner and you can rename your plane. So in this case we could call this plane kitchen elevation 1. And you can also change the symbol. So if you wanted this to say like A2 or whatever, when you change that, then this changes in your section planes in your model itself as well. And so you can use that to kind of label all of this stuff. And then you can use that to label your section planes. And then what we would do is we would create a view looking at this that's straight up and down. So in this case, I would select, there we go. So I would select the back view and I would go to view, camera, and I would turn off perspective. I would turn this on to parallel projection so that everything's straight up and down. And I would also turn my section planes off so that you can't see them. So what that does is that gives me a view of my interior that shows my refrigerator. It shows basically this kitchen stuff that I wanted to show. And then what you would do is you would just create a scene. So you would right click up here and click add scene, and then you'd go over to your scene section and you'd rename this. There we go. So you would click on this scene and you would name it something like interior kitchen elevation or something like that. You may want to name that something a little bit different if you're getting a lot of views on the top of your screen here. And so then you could take that and you could bring that into layout. So that's definitely one way to do this. That would give you this scene that you could bring into layout. But what happens is you start creating a lot of different section planes whenever you do this. And so there's kind of a cool workaround that you can use in SketchUp, and this is actually something that I learned from Matt Donnelly over at Master SketchUp, but it's a really cool trick. Basically what you can do is you can use the position camera tool, and if you remember, the position camera tool allows you to set the position of your camera, and then if you click and drag, you can set what your camera is looking at. So like for example, if I wanted to set my camera based at this point, looking at the top of that cabinet, I would click and drag and let up on that. And then if you see down in the lower right hand corner, it lets you set your eye height. So I would set my eye height to like 5'6" or whatever. And then you could kind of click and look around, but you can use that to set your camera. Well, the other thing you can do with that is you can also click and drag and create kind of cut through views without actually doing a section plane in your model. And so the way that you do that is, first of all, it only works if you turn perspective off. So you want to turn perspective off and be in parallel projection mode. And then all you have to do is you just activate the position camera tool, and you click somewhere in your kitchen and you click and drag, and you want to make sure that this is on the green axis. So if you click and drag from this point and you're on the green axis, this will actually create a view that's kind of a cut through view without you actually having to create a section cut. So now I could take this and I could save this view, and I can do that without having to do a section cut in my model. And you can see how this kind of gets a little bit messed up if you rotate around in your model after you do that. So you can always go back to your working view, but you can use this to basically create really quickly whatever elevation view you want in your model. So you can see how I can easily pull this elevation view of my bathroom and my bedroom. You know, this way you could also click and you could create another view. See, and you do have to be a little bit careful where you set your camera when you do this, but you could create another elevation view that shows your dishwasher and your area where your sink is. So you can see how quick and easy this is. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to create a couple different elevation views, and for each one of them I'm going to create a scene. And the other thing to consider is what style you want these to be. So if you're creating a set of documents where you want colors, then when you create this scene, like let's use this one as an example. I'll click add, I'll name this kitchen elevation 2, and if you have something that has more scenes, you're going to create a lot of elevations. You may want to create a better description than that, but you want to make sure all of the properties in here are getting saved, like your styles and your axis settings, your visible layers, all of those things. But what you can do as a part of this is you can also set your style. So in this case, if I wanted this to be a black and white image, then I could set this hidden line interior walls style, or any of the other styles that I've used, the hidden line style, the hidden line exterior walls, any of the styles that I've used before. You can go to the styles section and you could go to in model and you can pick those, or you can go through and pick whatever style you want. So you just want to set this, and then once you've set the style that you want, you can right click on this and you can click update. And one thing to note, the benefit of doing this in SketchUp 2018 with a section plane tool is the section plane tool now allows you to create the line weights that you want. So that's a new feature in SketchUp 2018, but if I turn my section planes back on, in the styles section, under edit, and I believe it's under modeling settings, you can set your wall line weights or your section line weights. So you can basically tell this, if you want your section line weight to be like a 5 or something like that where your wall is, you can adjust those line weights in the styles section now. So that is the benefit of doing this with section planes. So if you're not really worried about line weights when you take this over into your model, it's not a big deal. But that's definitely something to consider when you're setting up your scenes. So, and then the other thing you can do if you want to is you can also adjust your style so that the back side of your faces isn't this this gray color. So if you find that distracting, if you don't really want that to show up in your model, you can go into your face settings of your style that you've selected, and you can set that to white. So if you don't want the inside of those walls to show up that darker color, then you can do that. Or the other thing you can do, and this is also added in SketchUp 2018, is if you want the inside of your walls to be dark, you can turn on section fills. And this is in your view where you actually took your section cut. But if you want the inside of the section cut to show up shaded, that's something that they added in SketchUp 2018. So if I go back and I turn on my view section planes and I click on this, you can see anywhere where this is cutting through your walls, it's adding like this dark shading. And you can move this back and forth until you get kind of what you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to move that a little further back so I get this this wall cut as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn on section fill, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click and I'm going to update my interior kitchen elevation. And it's going to ask what you want to do with your style changes. In this case, I'm going to say save as a new style. So I want this to be a style in my model that I can adjust separately, and you can go into your styles and rename that. So you can call this architectural design style dash section fills, and then you just click the update style. And so once you've got your view set up the way that you want it, you've updated your scene so that all of those settings have been saved, then you're going to go up and you're going to save your model. And so once you've saved your model, we're going to go into our layout file, and we've created this layout file before, so I'm just going to kind of build on top of it. If you remember in the last video, we created the door schedule, added some notes to this floor plan, and also labeled that using our scrapbooks. Well, now we're going to create a new page. And so in order to do that, you're going to go over into your tray, and under pages, you're just going to click the plus button for add a new page. And you can see what this does is this adds a page, and it keeps the same template that you had in here before. So you can see how this one, and I believe that it's numbering these as well. So this was sheet A01, and it kept the template that I had. So if I go to this page, it labeled this one A02. It's the second page that I've created. And probably what you want to do is you want to start labeling these as you go. So I'm going to go ahead and label this first one A01 dash floor plan. And then I'll go to page 2 and I'll go to A02 interior elevations. And so now what we want to do is we want to import a couple of our viewports from our SketchUp model. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up to File, Insert, and I'm going to find my SketchUp file, in this case, this apartment part 7, and I'm going to bring that in. And you can see what that did is that brought in my active view from that SketchUp model. And you can change that by right-clicking on it, and you can select your different scenes. So I could select my kitchen elevation number 2. I could really select any of these, so if I wanted my overall floor plan. So you can just right click on these and you can select your different scenes that you have in your model. So in this case, I'm going to start this one off, and I'm going to go with this interior kitchen elevation. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to adjust my style so that this is white in the background. And honestly, I may select a style that's more black and white right now, mostly because I don't have any colors right now in my actual refrigerator or my pantry or anything like that. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to do this in color because there's not a whole lot of colors to show. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to adjust that real quick. So just go back into SketchUp. You want to make sure you're in your interior kitchen elevation, and you're going to select a different style. So in this case, I'm going to select my hidden line interior walls. And alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to use the hidden line style. And so you can go to your default styles, and there's a style in here called hidden line, and I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to make a quick adjustment to that, so I'm going to add a new style. I'm going to click the Create New Style button, and we can go ahead and leave this as Hidden Line 2. That's fine. And basically, I'm finding the fills on this to be a little bit distracting, so I'm actually going to uncheck the box for Section Fill. And you can leave your line widths, this thicker line width if you want, or you can turn that down so it kind of blends. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my section line width and I'm just going to set it to 2. And then once you've made the changes that you want, you're going to go ahead and just click on this Update Style with Changes. And then just right click on your overall view and update it, and then click Save. So basically what we did is we created a new style, we applied it to this elevation, and then we saved it. Well, then we can go back into Layout, and we can right click on this and we can click Update Model Reference after that's saved, and what that's going to do is that's going to update this view based on that. And so now we can take this elevation and we can set our scale. So you're going to go up to SketchUp Model, and you're going to select a scale. So in this case, we'll start with 1/4 inch. That seems like it's going to be a little small. Maybe we'll set it to 1/2 inch, and then you want to make sure this box for preserve scale on resize is checked. Otherwise, when you adjust this, it's going to adjust this in your model as well. But I'm just going to click and drag this down, and I'm going to kind of size this box around this. And I'm going to click and drag this up to the top. So one thing you could do if you want to is you could go into your styles and you could adjust your line weight. So you could come in here and set your line weight to 1. I find that darkens this up a little bit more, and that way you can kind of see what you're dealing with a lot better. And so now I'm going to label this. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my section for scrapbooks. And I believe we're going to go with the drawing references scrapbook. So you're going to click this drop down. You're going to find one of these drawing references, and you're going to click and drag this in. So I'm going to click and drag this underneath, right underneath my model. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to go into my text style, and I'm going to adjust the text so that these labels are a little bit bigger. And we're going to go in and we're going to adjust these just by double clicking on them. And then, so like I can adjust this A by double clicking in here. So in this case, this is sheet A02, and we'll call this detail number 1, and we'll call this kitchen elevation. And I'm going to make this bottom one a little bit bigger, and I'm going to go ahead and just manually add in what my scale is. So in this case, I believe if I click on this, this was 1/2 inch equals 1 foot. So now I've got this kitchen elevation in here, and so there's a couple different things you could do from this point. And so the first thing you can do is you can add some dimensions. So like for example, if you wanted to add a dimension labeling how wide this refrigerator is, then you could just use the dimension tool in order to do that. And you could do the same thing with this. You could do the same thing with basically anything in here. And one thing I'm not liking is this is going to the 64th, which is a little too precise for me. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to, we'll set it to an 1/8 for right now. So all you have to do that is just click on your dimension, and then in the dimension style section, you can set your precision. So in this case, I'm going to set this to an 1/8 of an inch. And you can see how that's adjusting the way that these work. You can use this to adjust the way that these dimensions look, and then you can use the text style to change the size of the actual dimensions themselves. So you can use this to dimension everything, and you could make some notes in here as well. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to our first page, and we're actually going to add a note noting that this interior elevation is in here. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a note indicating where our elevation is. And so one trick for doing this is I'm probably going to put all of this on one layer. So I'm going to add a layer, and I'm just going to call it annotation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this interior elevation note onto my screen, but I'm going to drag it off to the side first of all, because otherwise if I drag it on top of this, then the order that everything's in on the page is going to get a little hard to manage. And so what I want to do is I want to bring that in. I want to right click, and I want to go ahead and put that on my annotation layer, which it brought in on that layer because that was the current layer. And I'm going to go ahead and move that to the top. And so if you remember in layout, whatever layer is on the top is on the top in your image as well. So now I can click in here and I can add this, where if I'd brought it in and it was below that, I wouldn't actually be able to click on it because my furniture layer is on top of that. So that's why I'm going to put my annotation on the top layer, but also so that I can turn this on and off as well. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click in here, and if you remember, that was detail 1 on sheet A2. And I think I actually labeled it A02. But in any case, you can take this and you can kind of resize this a little bit if you want to. And if you hold the shift key, it'll lock the scale so that you just make it bigger without actually without stretching it sideways and distorting it. So I'm just holding the shift key and clicking and dragging it. And I can click on this and adjust the text size again using the text style section, so I can make those bold as well. But you can see how now I have a note saying if you want to look at an elevation view of this section, you go to sheet 1 on A2. So if I click 1 on A2, you can see that shows up over here. And I may switch these names around because I don't like having the sheet name on top. I like having the detail number on top, but that's kind of a personal preference thing. So this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. That's how you add elevation views to your SketchUp model. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Was this helpful to you? Do you have any tips or tricks for doing this when you're working in layout? I just love having that SketchUp conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, even if it's only $1 a month. But in any case, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.